because I didn't actually know for a very long time. I was experimenting in animation since I was 16 maybe, but I wouldn't call it animation anymore. I was just like exploding letters with glitter effects and all sorts of fun, silly stuff. But I went to school for, I thought, graphic design and web design, because that was what I was doing for a living at the time. And then I hated it. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was extremely competitive in a kind of vicious way. And so I thought maybe illustration would be cool. So I almost went to illustration for an illustration major, and then I looked the program, it wasn't that interesting. And then it's like, okay, there's animation there too. I guess I can do that. I have some experience in that thing. And that was like my second year in college. And I'm like, kind of sounds cool. And so I kind of went for it, thought this might be something fun to do. And it wasn't until I did my first narrative short where I actually saw, okay, people are responding to this, and I'm responding to it as well. And I'm having so much fun telling stories. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is what I want to do. So it was very late on, like probably by the time I was graduating from undergrad, before going into grad school, that I decided this is like absolutely what I want to do. But throughout my life, from the beginning, it was like, I had some experience doing animation. I love animated shows and movies, but I never saw myself as an animator until then.
Since you've become an animator, have you studied the work of other animators to kind of see where you want to take your work, or where it came from, like, the great Disney animators, Lounsbury, Lee Johnston, those kind of people? Do you follow their work too? Do they inform you, or are you doing music?
To be honest, I was born in Paraguay. I was there until I was 19, I think. Yeah, 19. Over there, we didn't see Disney classics. I didn't get to see Pinocchio or Snow White or a bunch of other classics until I was in the US studying animation, which is kind of embarrassing. But
I'm so sad.
Yeah. Jungle Book even. Yeah, so sad. But I got to see them later. But I still, I would see the bigger things like Toy Story and, a lot of other more popular things that weren't like the old classics that were coming out at the time. But after I got into animation, or at least into art school, I started definitely studying styles. But I think I'm more influenced by writer-directors than by animators specifically. To me, it's about the content of the story more than the animation style or how clean your lines are or anything else like that. So like, I don't know, Neil Gaiman reading every single one of his books, or Guillermo del Toro, or I don't know. There's a bunch of filmmakers that are more live action specific, that are more the sensibility I have towards films.
Yeah.
I know artists like to kind of just chill and listen to music as they work. Do you have kind of a playlist that you follow to kind of guess while you're working?
Probably embarrassing, but like indie folk. Yeah. So Radical Face or stuff like that, it's like, I don't know. I'm okay with banjos and stuff like that too. It's very weird because I didn't get into them until just a few years back, and I'm loving it now. And soundtracks. Soundtracks are like kind of, they just wash over. I don't need to pay attention and just feel the emotion. But in general, I only do music if I'm doing something mindless. Like there's in the layout process, there's sometimes when you are thinking, what is the right shot? Where do I place my camera? And everything is very specific and creative. And then after that, it becomes what we call publishing, which is sending the stuff downstream to the next department, which is extremely technical, boring, and repetitive. And I just have to hit a lot of keys over and over again. So at that point, I put the music on and let the droning just take me away from that moment. The Game of Thrones Season 6 soundtrack has been the latest one. It's very cool.
That actually reminds me of another thing I want to know a little bit about. And I imagine it changes during different phases, but what's your workday like? I mean, you drive in, you punch in the clock, and all that kind of stuff.
There's no punching.
Yeah. I imagine it's a very different lifestyle.
Yeah, that's actually,
than people have.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's super open. The schedule is like, no one keeps track of it except for yourself, but it's about getting quality work, and of course you count your hours, but it's like pretty loose and really relaxed. And so I get up at 7, I'm at work by 8, and usually, let's say we're in a standard part of the production, which doesn't really happen that much, but the standard would be I would sit down at my desk, during the morning and actually get what we call shot work done, which is placing cameras, staging, animating the characters, like shooting that out, sending it to the tutorial department so they have something to work with. And then doing more cleanup and more what we call alts, like alternative shots. So do a whole bunch of different takes on the same sequence, see what works better. Usually meet with the supervisor once a day or so. Usually there's a director of cinematography that supervises everyone else around there, and so we meet with them. Then we got a lot of problems and technical issues, so we meet with the technical people and try to get that solved. Maya crashes about 100 times a day. You lose your work, you start over. Yeah, it happens. It's like all the time. And then eventually, once we send everything to the tutorial department where they try to assemble it, we get we just kind of sit down and wait for the directors until we can get time with the directors to actually review this. And that's actually, sometimes I just bring my laptop and I sit and I do my own modeling work and stuff like that when we have those little quiet times. And then once we get director time, we sit down in the room with the director, producers, VFX supervisor, everyone else that's like making the big decisions for it. Watch the sequence, which is usually about 4 minutes long or so, and get notes, go address the notes, and then come back and do it again and again. There's like usually 5-6 times where we do this whole process until we get a sequence nailed down. And after that point, it's more technical crap. That's kind of the boring part where I put the music on and it just becomes crap. It's published, send stuff downstream. But yeah, it's a lot of meetings with directors, a lot of sitting in my desk, just working on my own. And also meeting sometimes with the group, like we do dailies where we look at each other's work, just get some critiques, that sort of thing. It's really nice. My favorite project was Zootopia, by far. That is true. But my favorite my favorite experience somehow was Feast, because it was my first time supervising. And I had no clue what I was doing. And even the producers know that you have no clue what you're doing. You're a first-time supervisor and they expect that. So they see you stumbling and not knowing what to do, and they come back, they bring some production people to help you out. But I learned so much more through Feast. That was the best, most awesome thing. Yeah. And it was also short. Like, you know you're not gonna be there stuck for a whole year if there's problems. Like in 4 months it's gonna be over and you're fine, you'll be done and go to the next project. Sometimes like, with Zootopia I didn't get tired of the world because it's so much fun. But like with Moana, it's so much water. And I'm like, I want something different. So it depends on the project. Sometimes you don't want to have 10 whole months of the same type of world. So yeah, Gail.
The question is, does Joaquin have a favorite animated film of all time?
I would think it is Totoro, just because it's too personal. But if I watch it today, it's kind of silly, But it is awesome. It is so awesome. The one that probably had the more recent emotional impact was probably Toy Story 3. It's just that scene with when the room is empty and the mom just sighs. I just went through that when I moved to the US and all that stuff. So that was. I don't know what they're thinking with that, if they're planning something like that, but I don't know. It's. Oh, if they could have been made, perhaps. The thing is, I don't think we have the team like we had years back. It's you don't have the Glenn Keenan is not at Disney anymore, so. It's a lot missing in there for that. But I think when they approach the project, if the project would work better in 3D for what they want to do, that's the answer usually. And then there was a kind of hybrid thing that was at some point that I can't talk about really, but it was about to happen, but it was just not after all. It's just things kind of fell through. But it is a possibility. I think I don't know. In general, our studio is now dedicated to more 3D, but there's still some 2D people, of course, like Eric Goldberg is animating now. Still, it's he did Hercules and a whole bunch of other stuff too. So he's still part of the team, and a lot of the other 2D animators are still there too. So could happen, I don't know.
Is that maybe something you could talk a little bit more about, maybe the strengths of storytelling through 2D traditional and 3D? Because you said you have a very 3D mind and you can visualize more that way. So are you more comfortable telling a story in 3D, or are there strengths to telling one in 2D as well?
I think it's a style, personal style, and also what the narrative requires for the film. For me, like, I prefer 3D, but after Sebastian's Voodoo, which was my big 3D film, I did a 2D film again. And it's because that's the style that the film needed. It was all about silhouettes and, you know, flat shapes and how you tell a story with just these flat things. It was a very different approach. But I don't know, I think there's also a budget thing. Nowadays, most studios are doing 3D because it's the cheapest thing to do. Not necessarily bad. Cheap is not necessarily something horrible. It's simply you can get a lot more done for with a lot less people for a lot less money, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, this is when you're talking commercial situations. And then there's some studios still doing 2D, but when the style really helps tell the story, like what's the name? Persepolis, for example, or Walls with Bashir, and that sort of stuff. That in 3D would have been horrible. That would have been absolutely terrible. But I don't know. I think it depends not just on the studio, the producers and directors, and what they like to do and what they want to see, but also what the story calls for. Like I love 3D Zootopia more than I would have loved that 2D, even though I would have liked seeing the animation of, you know, Andreas Deja doing some animation for Zootopia, but it won't have worked the same way. You have to see that fur and feel the realness of it.
Do we have anybody in the back that has a question? We haven't heard from the back rows yet.
I'm just curious, like, when you start animating, what are some of the things you think about when you start with the animation and
I think it depends on the shot. Like if we're talking actual character animation with, you know, making the character act, I tend to, if it's a serious thing and I need to put out a lot of time and I know it's going to be a final, I'm going to get a video reference. And I'm going to go and be horrible in front of a crappy camera and never show anyone, and just record over and over until I feel like it's something that I feel comfortable with. But I'm a horrible actor, so it's not like I can just go and do a take. I fake it and it looks horrible, but I kind of know where it wants to go. And I tend to do not frame by frame animation, but keyframe animation. So I go, this is one pose, that's one pose, there, another one, and then I'm gonna go do cleanup in the middle. So I'm just trying to get the main beats, like what, and for us, I don't think it's just animation. In every single thing, there's always about telling a full story. So what's the beginning, middle, and end of a shot, or what's the beginning, middle, and end of a sequence, or of a whole movie. So even with our cameras, like we start easing into the characters, then we cut and we do some orbits, and then we ease out on the way out. We tell a full story in a couple of shots. Everything needs to have that full sense. So for animation, I do the same thing. It's like, what is the beginning of the action, the middle, and an end? Sometimes you cut in the middle and don't finish it. That's on purpose. You want to emphasize something, but most of the time you want to tell the full story. But I don't know. To me, it's I probably do horrible faces when I'm animating because I'm trying to get the right emotion. I'm like, how do you actually smile? I don't even know what muscles I move. I get too technical. So I'm doing this. I'm not even using a mirror. Just feeling my face doing something, and then see if what I see on the screen matches that. If it does, that's great.
Go ahead.
Lubetsky has been lately freaking awesome. He did a lot of stuff like Birdman. People hate it too, but you know, the work with Terrence Malick, that's also crazy. Tree of Life, all that stuff. Robert Richardson. Who else? What's shit? I always confuse Robert Richardson and the guy that was doing DreamWorks. He went and actually did helped out with DreamWorks stuff. He does a lot of work with Spielberg. No, he's the director. But anyway, I think Navarro also, that's been pretty cool. In general, I tend to look more for the sensibility of the director than the cinematographer, because I think the cinematographer kind of puts the director's vision on the screen in a way. So some have their own unique styles. But you think of a Wes Anderson film, even though he's not the cinematographer, I like Wes Anderson's look, the flat look for certain things. Or Guillermo del Toro has different cinematographers, but it's gonna look like a Guillermo del Toro type of film. So depends. Yeah, it's a very easy process to get what we call a carve out, where it says, I'm gonna work on this separate project outside of the studio. It's not gonna interfere with my studio work, and I'm not gonna use equipment from the studio to use the resources. I've done that in the past to help some friends with some projects, and done my own shorts, like the little short that was mentioned about doing the astrophotography. But I haven't done anything major, like where I try to do a full longer thing, because I think I work way too much in animation all day already. So by the time I'm done, I want to go home and either do 3D printing stuff, do my own modeling, or do photography. Those are my two big things. So if I have time off, I go on a road trip and take pictures. To me, it's more fun at the moment. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but yeah, I tend to help people with little projects here and there when I can, more than come up with my own big, gigantic, short thing at the moment. I had some ideas for features that I was working on, but it is so hard to pitch stuff in Hollywood. I went through that whole thing, and it's kind of consuming and horrible. It's a very, very terrible experience. So I prefer to have, I have my own feature work, and then my own time is, I'll do everything but animation most of the time.
Artistic ideals or whatever.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there, how they're so different. To me, yeah, it's like I was saying with photography, I try to capture what I see. I haven't gotten that creative with photography. That I think is a flaw. I should be thinking, what do I want to tell, before just like, I'm here, I'm gonna tell what I see. That would be a more creative approach, but I haven't done it myself. I think I also hide behind the camera. That's why I take pictures of animals, and I don't approach other people, hey, can I take your picture, because I'm embarrassed. Believe it or not, I'm actually pretty introverted. I just force myself to go to events like this and talk, but in general, I'm like in my little corner, not trying to talk to anyone. But yeah, to me, the camera is that. I'm gonna be outside in my own world and see things. And then when it comes to narrative stuff, I tend to just, there's usually an approach, like, are you character or plot or whatever? To me, it's concept-based most of the time. Like, what if a voodoo doll were to stab himself? There's a concept, and I come up with an idea for that, and that creates a story and a character. So my characters are not necessarily that developed because I didn't start that way. My plot, sometimes I can't finish the plot, so I drop the project because the plot is not solvable in some way. The concept is strong, but I can't actually put all the pieces together. But I tend to start with some, what if someone was folding origami out of everything, the whole world, or it's just little things like that, and they tend to be more visual things. I have an image of something like the guy folding origami or something like that. I'm just like, how do I put that into a story? And that's how it starts. Here too.
Tying back to the whole animation, when you're working on movies like Zootopia, you're working in your creative space, and the scene plays out, if you don't like something, are you able to go back and kind of change the issue with the camera where it is? It's not, let's say in like 2D medium, when you draw everything out, you can't exactly go in and change perspective. So,
Yeah.
when you're working in 3D, it's pretty easy to kind of hammer out where you want it to be.
Yeah, so he's asking if I can actually move the camera and change the way the shot works, as opposed to 2D where you have to redraw every frame. And actually, it's kind of similar in 3D. Rendering is very expensive and time consuming. So our job in layout is to make sure that we find the right shot before it goes down to the other departments where they have to do the heavy processing jobs. So the animators are going to animate to a camera specifically, because they're probably going to cheat those poses and stretch everything out, and in some ways are impossible. And it's going to look good just from that angle. The same as a 2D person would draw something completely fake, but that looks great. And lighting will light for that camera angle, and everything else, effects will do the effects just for what's on that frame, so it's not that expensive. We do probably bazillions of extra shots that are different angles, different takes that then don't get used, but for us it's super cheap. We can do it fast, we do it real time, there's no rendering involved, and we can visualize it right there. And if we're a good layer artist, by the time we deliver that, it's locked and no one changes it. It comes back to us. So Like every once in a while there's a shot, the animators decide, no, we want to have this action instead, and we have to go and change it, but that's part of the process.
They don't need a suit, they have that personality out of the suit.
Yeah. So yeah, first question, the 3D printing. So the biggest 3D printed object you can do right now with commercial normal printers that you can normally use or upload to different services. I think a print bed of the biggest type of center laser SLS printers is probably about the size of this table here, and about maybe this tall, and it will cost you a few tens of thousands of dollars because it's all done by volume. So if you have a little cube that is like 1 centimeter, it costs you $1. You make it 2 centimeters, it costs you $8. So you're multiplying 8 times really. And then the more you multiply, yeah, it's just 3 axes that you're multiplying. So it gets expensive. So that's why I haven't done anything large scale. I think you could do it cheaper with something like a MakerBot with a PLA type of printer where you make it in chunks and then glue them together, kind of get rid of that little edge and where it fuses. But it is not that easy. What I see people do is, if they do massive sculptures like that, then they cast them in bronze and sell them for tens of thousands of dollars, then maybe you make your money back, but otherwise it's not a nice hobby to have, it's too expensive. And yeah, the fursuiting thing, yeah, I actually never didn't consider that, that's kind of cool. I would guess it would let me, yeah, be more extroverted when I can hide entirely behind that. But it's not like it was that surprising in that sense, it wasn't shocking, it was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. And seeing it in large volumes was like, just fun, I think. We're walking around with my husband taking pictures and just going crazy, so. Yeah, he is not here at the moment. Yeah, he was at the table helping some people out there while I ran over here, so he might be coming here later. I've been to Comic-Con once, only once. I've done a live action short myself, and I helped with a couple of the live action shorts. For features, I don't know, it's such a different thing. I would probably. Well, yes, but it's funny, like one of the guys from, the director of Feast, Patrick Osborne, he just got greenlit for a TV show with ABC, for example, which is live action but with an animated character. So that sort of thing is kind of cool. I think if it blends somewhere, either animation or VFX heavily, that's the type of thing I would gravitate towards. Like, let's say like Lord of the Rings. Yeah, sure, that's live action, but come on, it's animated. It's a lot of animation in there. So if it's something like that, I'll probably feel more comfortable. If it's just live action, it's like I have to talk to people all the time. It's like directing actors is so hard that I don't know how to do that yet. But yeah, I will give it a shot though. Here, Kevin.
From what you were saying when you work with all the other people in production and films and stuff, do you see other creators or the people you work with sort of evolving independently, like an organization or like a cooperative kind of group together where animators or creators in the downtime to say, hey, we're working on this and we're supporting each other in our professions socially or just
yeah, I actually have a few friends that do a lot of crowdsourcing animation stuff. Or they started that way, not by now they have their studios and whatnot. But there's that aspect, but there's even at Disney, there's a little system by which you can say, I'm going to do a short on my own time, but I'm going to use the equipment here, and you'll be able to use all the technology in the studio, and they will actually promote that sort of thing as long as you are taking your own time for it. And you can basically get people to join you in your own project and do your own thing that way.
And does that include like people of varying degrees of skill? I mean, you're still in university?
Not for that, because it's inside the studio, it's basically just employees that end up working on something like that. Outside of that, it's basically on your own. It's like if you want to go out and do it on your own time entirely and just get what the carve out, that's fine. But I think people that work at Disney, there's very few that are actually pursuing doing full shorts or things like that outside of it at the moment. I've seen a short aria for a cow was produced by a guy that was there at the time at Disney and still is, but on his own time with a whole bunch of students that basically got a whole bunch of people to just volunteer work. It's a jumble of different skill levels. You can tell every shot is animated with different skills, but it's kind of cool. It's just nice. It's people having fun. That was the whole point of the project, to have fun animating more than come up with something that feels like it fits together perfectly. I wouldn't probably even remember what I thought about it, because I was probably like, 10, 12, when I was just online. The first time we got internet, it was already out there somewhere. So I had seen it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was really. I just seen images of that online. I think it was probably when I was in college finally, because in Paraguay at least, maybe by now there's a little community of furries there that's kind of starting. But by the time, when I was there like 16 years ago, there was nothing really. But when I got into college in CCAD in Columbus, that's probably when I saw the first people that I knew were furries. I went to their houses. It wasn't a big deal. It was like, whatever. It's just, I basically didn't think much of it, because I think, when you are a gay artist, you are pretty open-minded to begin with. So it was like, okay, there's just a variation of, it's not even sexuality. That might be for some people, but it's just a variation of what you want to be or how you want to be. But yeah, it's like, I'm trying to think back the first time I might have seen an image online, which was probably not a G-rated image. So I don't know what I would have thought of at that point, because it was too long ago to actually even bring back to my memory. But I just know I had seen stuff online way back. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
What would you recommend for someone who's never tried animation, but wants to get started in it, but also can't afford this?
Yeah, so if you can't afford art school, want to get into animation, the way I started was YouTube tutorials. There's a lot of free stuff. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't free that I got for free, and I won't, recommend that because I shouldn't officially, but if you do, whatever. Come on, I was 12 years old and I had 3D Max, whatever. Yeah.
Would you say that Maya is, would it be better to start off with something similar like Voodoo, or would Maya be,
The people want to do the easy stuff first, but I would recommend jumping into the hardcore software first. Just going straight to Maya. You will learn what is the standard. Maybe by the time you're done learning, it will be gone and not exist anymore, but at least you'll be learning what is currently the standard thing. And it'll evolve as you learn. So Maya nowadays is a billion times different from 5 years ago. But just go with the hardcore stuff, and it's gonna be a million buttons that you never touch. I've never touched in my life either. Just focus on what you actually wanna do. It should be the modeling tab, the animation tab. You're not gonna do fluid dynamics or anything at the beginning. Maybe you will at some point. It's like there's stuff that you will never touch in there, and that's fine. Just don't let that kind of get into your head thinking this is too complicated for me, because you learn the basic tools first, and that's usually the majority of what you'll be using. Every once in a while you need something specialized, and even the people that work at Disney, it's like you'll see when they want to use a tool that they don't know very well, just Google. That's it. There's Maya help on Google right now. So that's how you learn how to use that tool. You learn it for 5 minutes and forget about it, because you're not going to use it again.
Well, that is all the time we have for this. You're going to be back for a few other panels, right?
I will.